All right, so this article just came out in Westchester Magazine last week titled Mixed Use Real Estate is on the Rise in Westchester. Now, if you're a restaurant operator looking for space in Westchester County, this is the one article you're going to want to read. Not because of what it says, because of what it doesn't say. And I'm going to walk you through it, and I'm going to give you sort of the translation that I think was left out. But we're going to just kind of go through it slowly, and definitely I'll link it in the show notes so you guys can check it out on your own if that's what you want to do. But really, what's most interesting here is the volume of what's going on. I mean, drive around, you see it. In Portchester, New Rochelle, you see these cranes sticking out everywhere. And it turns out that since 2019, we talked about this in the first video, Westchester has experienced a surge of these new mixed-use developments. Billions of dollars in new construction projects underway throughout the area. Projects supported by the county's Industrial Development Agency alone represent $4 billion in investment from 2022 to 2024. We've got Extel's development at the Hudson Piers in Yonkers. That's a $585 million project that broke ground in 2025. That's going to include 1,400 apartments alongside retail space and a whole new riverfront esplanade. You've got 3 AMS acquisition projects currently under development with a total of over 4,000 units and 1 million square feet of retail space near the Yonkers Metro North. And then you've got a 12-story mixed-use building going up at 146 Westchester Avenue, which, if you've been over there recently, it's changed the whole landscape of the downtown. That includes ground floor retail space, and that construction is expected to be completed in 2026. So every single one of these projects here, okay, they've got ground floor retail, and landlords are going to be leasing to restaurant operators and food service operators, right? They're high demand. They want to know, who's going to bring the people, right? Let's face it, restaurants bring the energy. They bring the vibe to these new development projects. And most of these operators who are signing these leases or looking to sign a lease in these properties, they are going to be surprised by what they find when they actually start building out the space. So what does this actually mean for you, for restaurants in Westchester County right now? Well, here's the translation, and this is what the article's not giving you. Number one, ground floor retail in a mixed-use building is not at all like a standalone building. Ground floor retail in a mixed-use development needs 14 to 18 feet of clear ceiling height to accommodate equipment, signage, and generally sort of brand standard stuff. A ground floor space with a 9-foot ceiling is a residential space. That is not a retail space. That design decision got made way early on, and it is expensive to change retroactively. So when you're touring these ground floor retail spaces in one of these Yonkers or New Rochelle buildings, the first thing you're going to want to ask yourself is, what is the confirmed clear height? Not the advertised height, the confirmed as-built height. That's what you need to know. That number determines whether your hood system, your exhaust stack, and your equipment fit before you sign anything. So it's critical. The second thing, the TI negotiation, everybody's favorite. TI negotiation in a mixed-use project is completely different. Now, this is kind of something that surprises folks because, I don't know, they feel like because it's a new building, they're going to be more agreeable to throwing a couple TI bucks at you, but it's not going to be that way. It is completely different than being in a standalone building, and the TI negotiation is generally pretty straightforward. The landlord knows the asset. They know what kind of rent they need to get. They know what needs to be done to the space for the most part to make it ready for a restaurant. And they certainly know what build-out costs are. So they have got this dialed in. You got to keep in mind, though, in a mixed-use development project, the main priority is the residential component, okay? The retail is an amenity to the residential, not the opposite, right? You guys often will come to me and say, hey, there's 400 units up there. I'm going to get X amount of those people. The recapture on that is debatable, but it's not as high as you think. You're not going to get every person who lives in that building to come in once a week. Just not going to happen. So the fact that you're an amenity to the building, you think to yourself, oh, I got leverage here. They need me here for these residents. Sometimes, but not always. Developers who want to attract quality restaurants to create an activation in a project, they're going to need to contribute $100 to $200 a square foot in TI. That's just what they need to make the economics work. Restaurant build-outs are $200 to $400 to build out. And that's just for a mid-level build-out, right? Forget about if you're doing some high-end build-out. That's a out of the box. You need a restaurant. Here's a restaurant. That's kind of what you're looking at. It's a pretty fair guess. So what do? You got to get a contractor to walk the space before you sign. You're negotiating the LOI, you get to a point where you feel like, all right, this deal's close. Nothing's really going to get us caught up on here. We're going to get this deal done. That's when you get the contractor in there. Or bring it in, well, maybe you got somebody who can walk there with you. You know, they're not somebody cold, somebody you worked with before. They'll come in whenever. The sooner the better, honestly. But get them in there, obviously, before you agree to anything with the LOI, and definitely before you agree to anything in the lease. So the other issue here is the delivery timeline. Delivery timelines in a mixed-use project are different than any other deal. You have a standalone building, delivery timeline is generally more predictable. Space is ready, you negotiate your free rent period, a little bit of TI, you build, you open, that's it. Now in a mixed-use development, your delivery is tied to the developer's construction schedule. And the developer's construction schedule, they slip all the time, right? They're not always right on time, as we know. The permitting and construction phase for mid-level, mid-scale sort of projects typically runs 6 to 12 months. For high-rise developments, right, you're looking 12 to 24 months, which is interesting to me because I generally say 18 months, so pretty close. If the developer's 6 months behind on the residential floors, your ground floor retail delivery is going to be behind too. Every month that delivery schedule slips, if you didn't figure this out properly from the beginning, you may be paying rent on a space that you can't even operate in. So the question that you need addressed in your lease is, what's the outside delivery date? And what's my remedy if the landlord doesn't hit that? Rent abatement? Do you have termination right? Both, right? You could have both. But if that language is not in the lease, you are exposed to way too much risk, in my opinion. So keep that in mind. Now, this is the regulatory piece that's making life a little bit more complicated right now. So the governor has this executive budget proposal that includes the SEQRA reforms. Okay. If this was accepted by the legislature, it would open up more mixed-use development and downtown revitalization opportunities. One Westchester developer in this article is actually quoted as saying that it would be a very important change for the county. So something to keep your eye on there. Now, what this means for you as a tenant with, these projects that are already coming out of the ground, Hudson Piers, the AMS Acquisitions pipeline in Portchester, those have cleared the environmental reviews. So you're getting on time. But the next wave of mixed-use projects, okay, that's a different story. They're the ones that are being planned right now, and they're going to be based on the pro-housing momentum. But those are in a very transitional regulatory environment. Some are going to clear quickly. Some will be under this new SEQRA framework if it passes. But before you sign a lease in any new development that has not broken ground, you need to ask the question about SEQRA. Do it. You're going to sound silly. You're going to sound like, well, no, nobody's mentioned this to me. Ask it. Where are you at in the SEQRA process? That answer is going to tell you everything about your real delivery timeline or expected timeline. So don't skip on that. Here's what I think it means over the next 12 to 24 months. This mixed-use development boom is real and it's accelerating. Gen Z and millennials have a very strong preference for these walkable communities. They want retail, they want amenities, and they want them within walking distance of where they live. A very city-like environment in the suburbs. This is just kind of where we're headed, is directly fueling these transit-oriented mixed-use development projects. The rooftops are coming, then the demand's going to come right after that. So what you need to do and what you need to keep in mind is that you're going to be in a position to win in these projects, meaning get the space that you want. If you can move quickly, you're going to negotiate the smartest. All right. You're going to know what you want going in, the TI ask, the delivery, the ceiling clearing, the SEQRA status. All of those are 4 conversations that are going to separate a really good opportunity in a mixed-use development project versus some expensive lesson that you're going to not want to learn. Look, the best ground floor restaurant opportunities are being leased right now before they're even built. And they're being leased to operators who know how to move and know how to move quickly. So if you want to be in Westchester County, you need to be talking to somebody who knows how these deals are structured from the inside. And that's exactly what I do. So if you are considering one of these ground floor retail opportunities in a new mixed-use development here in Westchester, or maybe you've been approached by a developer who wants you to be a part of one of their projects, send me a DM before you sign anything. Okay, no cost. All right, 15 minutes. I'll tell you everything that I think is a problem with what they're proposing and what I think about this particular project or this developer or this market or whatever you want to talk about. We can talk about it. No cost, just real information, boots on the ground that you can use before you commit.